Well, hello everybody. This is Daniel with Daniel's Bullion Coins. Excited to come to you again this week. Got my sweet wife Ingrid with us.
Good morning.
And we're going to talk about this week's events.
Yes. Well, you're wearing the shirt
Yes.
of what exactly
4th of July.
happened. Yes.
Today's the 5th, Saturday the
Wonderful.
5th, but have a good 4th of July weekend. Hope you had a good
Yes.
4th yesterday.
That's right.
And we're excited to see what the rest of the half of this year brings us.
It's been your birthday weekend, too.
Yes, July the 3rd. 61. Seems like we just did 60. Now
I know,
61. I can't
I know.
believe it.
Oh, my
I hate it. I hate it.
I love your shirt.
Thank you.
Happy
I love your
4th.
shirt. I told you 3 or 4 times when you came in. Where'd you get that shirt?
We're
That's
doing
nice.
this live, y'all, before we open up today because it gets crazy here. A little
Just
bit
take my
later.
word for it. She looks good.
Oh,
Okay.
you're a sweet thing. Okay, so we had the 4th of July weekend, and he
Yes.
signed the...
Yes, the big beautiful bill was this weekend.
Yes.
We're going to go into depth on that, but I want to tell you about what else has happened this week
Yes,
here at the
tell
shop.
us.
We're continuing to see the sellers. The sellers are really coming out in force.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we do have a little tiny bit of buyers offsetting that, but
Yeah.
it still seems like the sellers are winning out right now. So it's a buyer's opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's some real bargains out there.
Yeah.
You know, so just keep an eye out. Be sharp with your pencil and go for the bargains right now.
Right.
And don't be a particular. You know, we have these people that come into the shop and they're like, I want bars or I want rounds. Buy
Yeah.
what's the cheapest. Ask the
Right.
dealer, what have you got on sale this week? They're always got something they're clearing out. And
Yeah.
you can get bargains on that. My
That's
wholesaler's
true.
got some things he's clearing out right now.
Yeah.
Real bargains on bulk silver.
Yeah. Well, it's just not what people come in here asking for. They want, like we were saying yesterday, they want chocolate or vanilla. They don't want any.
Yes, with sprinkles on top
Yeah,
and
but they don't. They
caramel.
want. Wait, no, they want just plain.
Oh,
They
I see,
don't
just
want
plain.
the silver. They don't want
Right,
certain.
I see what you're saying. They don't want coins. They don't want to go into anything complicated. Just give me a
No.
round. Just give me a bar.
They don't want any.
Yes.
Ounce and that. We were going to get a good deal, an ounce and a quarter from our wholesaler, but
Yes.
we're like, people come in here, we can't even move those at all.
We couldn't sell an ounce and a quarter
No.
or an ounce and a half coin, even if we went below spot.
Right.
I just don't. People are so particular. They want the cheapest, plain, understandable thing. 1 ounce,
vanilla, chocolate,
easy.
maybe. Yeah, vanilla and chocolate.
And just switching
That's
them,
it.
trying to switch them from a round to a bar. Say, oh, we got extra bars.
know.
The bars are on sale. No. I want rounds, just plain rounds.
Yeah, it's
so
so
it's interesting.
funny.
Yeah.
Well, back to
watching
the
people.
big, beautiful bill. What can we say? What all do
Yes.
you want to? Because I know
So,
there's so much to unpack there.
A lot to unpack about the big beautiful bill.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize enough how I feel like this is so dangerous, and we're really going out on a limb in our trust and belief that Trump's going to be able to make this work.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff, though.
Yes,
that
there's a
came.
lot
There's
of good things. A lot of
huge,
good things. I'm just talking.
tax
I'm going to start out
credits.
talking about the disadvantages, and then I'm going to go into the
Okay.
advantages. So let's look at the disadvantages first, and then we'll list the advantages. So.
Okay.
The disadvantage is we're going to go into an inflationary situation where
Yeah.
we've got a 50,000 Dow. I predict a 50,000 Dow for here pretty soon, and maybe even before the end of the year,
Yeah.
because prices are going to start to inflate the currency away, or inflate the debt away is what we're going to try to do.
Now, explain why, because people who don't
Explain
understand
why we're
why
gonna-
we're going to see inflation. How's that
Okay.
going to do
Well,
it?
one of the things that's in the bill, for example, is they're going to put $1,000 for each child that's born this year. They're going to start a digital
I think next
account.
year they start actually.
Is it next year?
Yeah.
Real soon they're going to start these digital accounts for
Yeah.
children that were born next year, and it'll be $1,000. Well, that's going to inject cash,
Yeah.
printed money into the market, and that's going to cause the market to expand, and because it's going to have all this cash. It's very inflationary. You increase the monetary supply, you
Yeah.
increase the nominal price of things, but really you have to work harder. And so will wages, the real question is, will wages and will growth continue to rise along with inflation? And that's going to be the question, is can the demand for workers continue to go? It's certainly in labor or skills, because go get your car worked on and find out how much that costs, or have someone come out and work on your house. It's very expensive.
Very expensive.
So that goes into a little bit what we're going to talk about later, having a skill.
Yeah.
But having the Dow climbing up and trying to inflate the currency away, pumping a bunch of money into the market, you're cutting your income is what you're doing, but you're increasing what you're spending. So you're increasing the military spending, but you're cutting. You're also providing more money for people because you're allowing them to keep more money. So there's a lot of inflationary things in here. That's just a couple of them right off the top. But on the other hand, the good side of it is that it sets Trump up to, now that he's got the big beautiful bill part done. It's unfortunate that we had to deal with that issue first before we could go into the true Trump plan. And that is that we're going to bring manufacturing back.
Yeah.
Bring manufacturing back. We're going to have the sovereign wealth fund. We're going to assets. We're going to take the assets that are here in the U.S. and we're going to monetize those,
right?
Which they talked about. So we're probably going to go into that later on in the year. I think now that the big beautiful bill is done, they're going to start working on the trade problem and try to bring the tariffs down on trade that other countries charge.
Right.
And it's through just manipulating.
Well, that's what he's been doing.
Yes, he's been talking and setting a date.
Yeah.
And reciprocal. And so July the 9th, they had set that as the date that they would start sending out letters. And that was designed to be right after July the 4th weekend, where we would have the big beautiful bill done and then move on to the tariffs. Then I think we'll move on to currency later on this year, into the fall, into the very first part of next year, start to address the currency issue. And he's going to address the deficit, where if we can balance the budget before this year is out, and also its growth. He's predicting that if you cut people's taxes, that growth will come in. These types of things are what he's planning on doing
to stimulate,
to combat the inflation. But it's going to be very difficult. And a lot of people who have TDS syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome, are going to have a lot of fodder, to say, hey, this is not going to work, because it is going to be very, very difficult.
What do you? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what do you think gold and silver is going to do there?
Well, I think gold and silver are going to have an interesting situation, because gold is going to start continuing to climb, and that's because the banks are going to look at this as inflationary and a collapsing of the dollar, and so more and more banks are going to start buying gold. Gold's going to start to really run now, and that's going to trigger silver, because gold's going to start to get away, going to start to run, and silver's going to run through 40 fairly quickly. And of course, like I'm saying, it's going to be 50 by the end of the year. And that's because the bankers, not the public, not the people, not just U.S. people, but a lot of citizens are not going to be buying gold. They're not going to be able to.
Well, also the fact just that inflation will take more dollars to buy.
Yes.
I mean, that alone is going to push the price.
Exactly. The inflation is going to push the price of gold up out of the average person's reach. Another reason why silver is going to be the next sister, cousin, metal, platinum. Boy, platinum's really starting to go. So, platinum at one time was double the price of gold. Now it's half the price. So if it doubled from there, it would just really be something. So
that's true.
It could go from there.
Yeah.
So to bring that all back around, I guess what I want to talk about, one of the things I want to talk about is how to prepare yourself.
Yeah. Okay,
how to be prepared for what's coming.
Yeah.
And it really boils down to having three protections. One is a skill outside of the market. You're not going to be able to survive on just a regular income, because your wages may not increase fast enough to keep up with inflation. You need a skill. I always talk about firewood. Let's talk about getting yourself a small van and riding around and doing computer services, do security work, do internet hookups.
Automotive. There's a young man you met this week. Automotive. People get,
Isn't that something? Just ride around and do brakes, do detailing. put on a muffler, put on an alternator, diagnosing things.
Yeah.
And there's a young fellow that came in here this week. He's 18 years old, and he's got a van, and he's upgrading it with tools, and he's riding around doing side jobs on call. But he has a regular job doing 18-wheeler maintenance.
Right, that's huge.
And then he has this van in the evening that he runs around on the weekends and does side jobs. There was a guy that came in here this week actually panning gold right here in the Rappahannock.
Yeah.
And he's got this little, could I survive on panning gold? So he and his family are having all kinds of fun with the kids down there in the water, and they found exactly the legal limit for the size pump that you can have, or the size sluice box that you can have, and what you can do. And his family's having a great time finding gold. So skills is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Having skills, that's number one.
Yes.
Number two is I'm going to say, of course, gold and silver. Have some gold and silver. The third one is land. Have land. Now, land is a very tricky thing.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll tell a story that happened to me back in the, here goes one of my stories. Back in the 80s, early 80s, when I was in my 20s, I bought my first house. And it was right here in Northern Virginia. So that house is worth quite a bit now. Just a single wide trailer. But I got a 3-year note, and I put a substantial amount of money that I had saved up down, and I started working off this mortgage. And I got about 2 years of it worked off, and I decided to buy another house and to rent that house out until that mortgage was paid off.
That was a stick-built house.
It was an old house. It was in terrible shape.
Yeah.
And so I had a 15-year note on that house.
Yeah.
So I had this construction company, and I had these vans. These guys are working for me, and I'll never forget it, how prosperous and things were zooming.
Yeah.
Bush Sr. had won, and he had promised, read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah.
So the economy was really spurring just on the fact that he wasn't going to raise taxes. And the guy that I was subcontracting from, the general contractor, came to me in the middle of this project that we were doing for him. And it's a Friday, and he writes me a $17,000 check. Here I am in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I'm driving this brand new truck.
$17,000 back then was a lot.
That was a lot of money
now.
back then. That was an astronomical amount of money.
I mean,
it's still a lot now, but nothing
but
like it was,
especially
for a 20-year-old guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he writes me this check, and he's telling me, okay, I need you to divide into 2 crews and go into 2 projects as soon as you finish this one. And, the sky is the limit. And I had already bought 2 vans, and I was starting to outfit them with tools so we could go. I assured him we could go into 2 crews, and I will never forget, I bought lunch for everybody that day, had that $17,000, new truck I was driving. One house, a mortgage, only had a year left to go. The other one only had just a few years left, or 10 or 12 years, I can't remember. A 15-year note. But very easily I could see myself paying off this house. And I had renters in the house.
Yeah.
So the renters were actually paying the mortgage. And woohoo, boy, it looked great.
Whee!
And then all of a sudden, Bush went back on his read my lips, no new taxes. And that just shut down the economy. And what I'm saying is that you could have a shutdown in the economy. Yes, we've got taxes reduced, and yes, that's going to spur growth and all that, but this is going to be hard on the dollar.
Yeah.
And this could upset the apple cart. Something could happen with the dollar and this whole transition that Trump is trying to do. So we got our tax break. We don't have the new taxes, but I'm talking about the dollar collapsing. And not being able to take care and pay those houses. So it was like someone turned off the light.
Yeah.
My general contractor came back to me the next day or two later, a few weeks later, and he comes up to me and he's like, that's it. Pack your tools up. When you finish this job, close out and get out, because there's nothing else left for you here. And so we were like stunned, we're thinking, oh, no big deal, we'll make it and all this kind of thing, because, and we a real quick side note, we took another big project on at like 1/5 the regular rate.
Ooh.
We took a significant drop in pay just to keep the guys going, just so that I could keep the houses. I didn't want to lose the 2 houses. I'm trying to, the renters couldn't make the payment. In fact, the renters were my guys that worked for me.
Oh.
I had rented the house to my employees.
You really wanted to pay them.
So I was really, dependent on the construction company to provide income.
Right.
And so we took this one house at a fifth the rate, and when they came to set the crane up that day, they set it up wrong. And I told them, I said, that's the wrong way to set the crane up, but they wouldn't listen. They were the general contractor. They did what they wanted to do. Well, the crane fell over onto the house. It nearly killed me and several other of the guys.
What a
but
mercy.
I stayed and rebuilt that house from the ground, everything back, piece by piece. I put that whole roof on, and then the guy didn't pay me. So, you have the economy that you have to watch out for. You have tragedies that can happen in life. You don't want to be so stretched out financially. So I ended up, the economy was going down, down, down. I ended up selling the house that I only had a year left to go on the mortgage, took all of that profit, put it into the house that needed finishing, so I could finish it so that I could go to the closing and take a loss on that house. I actually had to write a check to the buyer to take the house.
Oh my God.
Ended up with a little, losing the truck, losing the brand new truck, and
oh honey,
buying some little scrap truck, little $1,000 truck, putting my little bit of tools that I had left in the back of that truck, and renting a small room. I had lost everything. So when it comes to land and houses, you've got to be sure and certain that you're going to have enough income that mathematically you're not going to lose it.
Well, then just go ahead and get it paid for.
Get it paid for, right. If it's paid for, that's really
possible.
ideal.
Yeah.
When I say get land, I don't mean go out and get debt and buy property.
No.
And you better have a skill that works in a good economy and a bad economy so that you can keep that property.
Right.
I made the mistake of renting my second property to people who work for me. So they were super dependent on me for income. And then we continued to try to keep the construction company going, and it just went downhill.
Oh my goodness.
Because it became a buyer's market for labor.
Right.
And you had to work at a fifth of your normal rate in order to get a job.
Wow.
So don't get in, land and assets, because it's the asset class that's going to win in an inflationary situation. It's like a corner of the room is going to profit first. Be in that corner that's free and clear owning assets.
Yes.
Even if it's like you start out with a double wide trailer. I started out with a double wide trailer.
Yeah.
Only had 1 year to go, and I should have stayed with that. But don't increase your commitment. And it's easy to do. When it's funny.
When things are flying.
When things are flying. I'm owning that house, and I go into the bank with my little deposit, I'm going to make this deposit, and the banker comes up to me, hey, how are you doing? How about buying another house? We'll loan you the money, all this kind of stuff. And then when it goes south, they're right there willing to take it back from you, but you've got to write them a check and all this. They're not going to be your friend, but they'll certainly get you into debt. Yeah.
So it's like we were saying, how are we going to steward this time of probably zooming economy, possibly? We've got to be able to steward that and not get in trouble.
Right. And steward is a really fascinating word, because our tendency, our human nature, our natural nature is to go have fun.
Yeah.
But the spirit is, hey, let's get prepared to help others.
Right.
And have that harvest ministry in mind.
Yes.
That's really what it's about.
That's really, absolutely, honey.
Well, that's a good one for today.
That's a good one, yeah, really.
I hope everybody enjoys that. Please put your comments in. Bless you. Have an
Blessings,
enjoyable
everybody.
Fourth. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.